For millions of years, the plains of Siberia were home to the mighty mammoth. In the last century, dozens of specimens have been found preserved in pristine condition, as if suspended in time in the permafrost. These discoveries have led to a revolution in the freezing industry.
What came to my mind about the area where the mammoth was found was the magnetic field. I wondered if something special wasn't going on with the magnetic field.
70-year-old Norio Owada owns and manages a small refrigeration equipment manufacturing company. It was the preserved mammoths of Siberia that inspired him to develop CAS, the Cells Alive system. A CAS freezer does what no other freezer can. It preserves the cells of organic matter intact. Once unfrozen, food products still retain most of their original freshness, as much as decades later. This restaurant in France relies on CAS technology to preserve grilled soles, a popular item on its menu.
Excellent, parfait.
CAS is also driving high expectations in the field of advanced medicine. Practitioners say its ability to raise the survival rate of preserved cells will lead to advances in organ regeneration techniques and to safer organ transplants.
With CAS technology, the technique, our protocol we have, we can increase it up to like 4 or 5 times.
So how did the owner of a small company come to develop such a promising technology?
The Owada way, or formula if you like, is to put things together and see how they work out. That's what goes on inside my mind.
This time on JTech, we look at the science behind the Cells Alive system and examine Owada's commitment to monozukuri, a manufacturing philosophy that has made Japan the technological powerhouse it has become.
Hello, I'm Marc Carpentier. Welcome to the program. In this edition of JTech, we take a close look at a freezing technology that has the potential to revolutionize the food and restaurant industries as well as the field of regenerative medicine. Now, we've known for a long time that freezing food helps to extend its shelf life, but until quite recently, that was only possible if you happened to live in the polar regions or in the temperate zones during the winter. It wasn't until the 1850s that freezing technology was first invented in France. It was called the heat pump method, in which a pressurized gas is sealed inside a pipe. It worked, but it wasn't cold enough, and foods took a long time to freeze. Then, in the early 1920s, American inventor and naturalist Clarence Birdseye developed a quick freezing method that led to the birth of the modern frozen food industry. Since then, freezing technologies have evolved very little. CAS is what brought about a new revolution. In June 2008, Forbes magazine gave Norio Owada the title of Mr. Freeze, saying his Cells Alive system was the most historically significant development since Clarence Birdseye's quick freezing method. So, what was all the fuss about? Let's find out.
Hakone is a region known for its hot springs and inns that cater to millions of tourists every year. This restaurant specializes in Japanese cuisine. It's been a feature attraction in Hakone for 22 years.
Oh, Kitano-san, nice to meet you.
I'm glad to see you.
Thank you for greeting.
The chef owner is Mamoru Kitano. He started his career at the age of 22. Kitano completed his apprenticeship at a 400-year-old restaurant in Kyoto. Its reputation for fresh and tasty ingredients earned it 3 stars in the Michelin Guide. Serving dishes made with frozen ingredients is usually taboo in the restaurant industry, and especially among Japanese chefs. But Kitano isn't shy to admit that he uses a CAS freezer, mainly for dishes that take time to prepare. Kobujime is a dish made of raw sea bream and kelp. Adadaki is stewed sea bream served with a sweet and salty sauce. Both dishes were first prepared and then frozen using cast technology.
Here you go. Enjoy your meal.
Oishiso.
Thank you very much.
This is a wonderful, beautifully presented dish.
The dishes look as if they were made with fresh ingredients. Their colors are vivid and their aroma is mouth-watering.
This dish is called Tai no Kama no Arataki. Sea bream tastes best in spring. Japanese cuisine focuses on seasonal ingredients. So here you also have bamboo sprouts and field mustard.
That is wonderful.
This is called Tai no Kobujime. The sea bream has absorbed all the umami flavor, so it should be tasty.
It has the texture and the full taste of the fresh fish. Very difficult to believe that this fish has been frozen.
Well, that's because it hasn't really been frozen. Think of it as another dimension of cooking.
Kitano takes us into the back alley of his restaurant.
Ah, so this
Here is the CAS freezer.
is the unit. I see.
It's custom made.
Ah, I see. So custom made for this space here. That's wonderful.
Small but beautiful.
Yes, it's very compact, isn't it? Right.
The company that manufactures cast freezers is called Abi. It's headquartered in Chiba, east of Tokyo. Founded in 1989, the firm sells about $40 million worth of cast freezers every year. "70-year-old Norio Owada, the inventor of CAS, is the company's founder. He spent the last 25 years heading both technological development and sales.
Owada-san. Nice to meet you.
What's your shoe size?
We head inside a laboratory where Owada's team runs constant tests on different types of foods and prepared dishes to see how well they preserve.
This is our CAS equipment.
These are huge. Can I take a look inside? Thank you very much. Oh,
As you can see, it's running.
so how cold is it inside here right now?
Minus 45 degrees Celsius.
Minus 45 degrees.
Owada shows us some samples of frozen food.
This fish has been frozen for 1 year.
It's already been 1 year.
The dark color of the fish hasn't changed.
How long keep its freshness?
Our experimental data says at least 5 years, but we'll be testing it for over 10 years.
It's possible that it could last for a lot longer than that.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Give it a try.
A little bit of wasabi.
I'm about to compare the taste of fresh raw tuna with defrosted cast preserved tuna and tuna that's been deep frozen in a conventional freezer.
I will start with the fresh tuna. The tuna preserved using CAS. The taste is just as fresh. I actually cannot tell the difference. The tuna that has been deep frozen, it doesn't taste fresh at all, and the texture is also is a little mushy.
Our system freezes food without destroying the walls of the cells. That's why you can tell the taste is different.
To demonstrate his point, Owada puts the 3 samples of tuna under a microscope.
Let's start with the fresh tuna. Look at the edges along the white areas.
The white lines visible on the screen are the cell walls of the fresh tuna. The pattern is well preserved on the tuna frozen with CAS technology. But on the standard unfrozen sample, most of the cells have been destroyed. The difference is explained by what happens to the water molecules inside the cells. In the standard freezing method, the food is exposed to cold air and starts freezing from the outside in. Water molecules inside the cells are drawn towards those that are already frozen, forming ice crystals that grow larger and eventually destroy the membrane of the cell wall. When defrosted, water runs out of the broken cell, spoiling the texture and taste of the food. The cast process prevents the formation of large ice crystals inside the cells. The outer membrane of the cells is preserved, keeping taste and texture intact.
There's a magnetic field in here.
The cast freezer emits minute amounts of energy in the form of a magnetic field, an electrical current, and sound waves.
To give you an idea of what's going on, we're going to run a little experiment. Here's a magnet. Just hold it like this, and you'll see.
This is a magnet.
そうです。
I see.
どうぞ。
Ah, this is vibrating. I can feel that vibrating in my hand.
The vibration I'm sensing is precisely what prevents the cell membranes from breaking down. When placed in a cast freezer, water molecules inside the cells start vibrating, keeping them at a distance from each other. As the temperature drops below the freezing point, the water cannot turn to ice. This phenomenon is called supercooling. The temperature keeps dropping, and at a certain point, the water molecules freeze instantly before they can form large ice crystals. This process allows the membrane of most of the cells to be preserved. The Cells Alive system relies on two core concepts to preserve the freshness, color, and taste of food. The vibration produced by the energy waves inside the freezer causes instant freezing of water in a supercooled state. Owada's lab keeps about 100 different food samples.
These are oranges.
Oh, oranges. I didn't know that oranges could be deep frozen.
They've been frozen for about 3 to 4 months already. See how they smell?
Oh, that smells wonderful.
Most fruit and vegetables would turn black when frozen due to oxidization, but here they've retained their vivid colors and fresh aroma. After more than a decade in a cast freezer, this sample of rice is still perfectly intact.
And here are some strawberries.
I know that strawberries are extremely difficult to freeze because they have a very high content of water.
Normally, they would turn into ice when frozen. Why don't you go ahead and take a bite?
Okay. No, this is easy. And the color hasn't changed either. Perfect. That's lovely. May I have another one, please? Norio Owada has given birth to an innovative technology that is transforming the freezing industry. This evolutionary step was made possible by a combination of circumstances. There was Owada's fascination with the frozen mammoths of Siberia. Then there was his experience in the freezing appliances business and his dedication to monozukuri, a manufacturing philosophy that is unique to Japan. Not to mention a stroke of good luck and just being at the right place at the right time.
The district of Asakusa in Tokyo. Norio Owada was born there in 1944. His father, Tomomitsu, managed a small factory that produced kitchen appliances for cafeterias and confectionaries. Norio was the seventh son in a family of 8 siblings and grew up playing around his dad's factory. After graduating from high school in 1962, he was hired by his father and became the company's only salesman. He was also the company's repairman. When equipment broke down or needed servicing, he'd respond to calls 24 hours a day.
I once had to apologize to a client and repair his unit. I spent the whole night trying to find the problem. I laid on my back, poking inside the thing.
At the company, Owada also participated in the development of new products, including freezers, and he organized showcases under the guidance of his father and senior colleagues. 13 years after joining the company, he invented an appliance that turned out to be the forebear of the caste system. In 1989, Owada left his father's company and founded his own called Abi, specializing in the manufacture of cream freezers. He first hired a staff of 20 people. Today, Abi employs 33. Owada is the pillar of the company. He personally oversees negotiations with clients, both in Japan and abroad. He spends hours and days with his engineers, trying to find solutions that meet the client's expectations.
The most important thing for us is to develop equipment that satisfies the client. It all depends on the client's reaction. That's the basis of how we develop our machines.
Owada has spent the last 50 years bent on a single idea: to develop and manufacture equipment that matches all of his clients' expectations. His work spanned 26 years and 2 generations of innovation and evolution. Developing CAST technology has made his company famous worldwide. And it all started when one of his father's best customers asked them to develop a freezer that could preserve fresh cream.
A model of the very first type of fresh cream freezer Owada developed is still in use at this pastry shop in central Tokyo. It was purchased 15 years ago. Its owner is Hitoshi Sato. He returned to Japan at the age of 32 after training as a pâtissier in Europe and opened his own shop.
At first, I was amazed by how fast this machine could freeze cream. The freshness of my products is crucial. Making sure of that is the most important part of my job. And the only way I can ensure my cream stays fresh is with a good freezer.
At the time, industry magazines started talking about the need for fast freezers, but flash freezing wasn't possible with standard deep freezers. When thawed, cream would turn into butter.
Fresh cream is mainly composed of fat and water molecules. Standard freezing results in the separation of those molecules, rendering the cream useless. Inside a standard freezer, the water molecules in the cream start migrating to the periphery of the container and crystallize into ice. This is what causes them to separate from the fat. Owada asked his many acquaintances in the food and restaurant industries for advice on how to prevent the separation. No one had a clue. Until one day, he remembered a story he had heard as a child. His father had told him about the discovery of a frozen mammoth in Siberia.
I heard that during hard times, people from the village would eat the meat off the mammoth. That meant that flesh was still edible after tens of thousands of years. But it also turns out the Earth's magnetic field was particularly strong in that area.
Owada became convinced that the strong magnetic field in this part of Siberia must have somehow been partly responsible for preserving the flesh of the mammoth over thousands of years. He approached an expert on the Earth's magnetic field and was told that 5,000 years ago, the field was much stronger in Siberia. Owada developed a hypothesis. If he could manage to replicate this magnetic field inside a freezer, Perhaps it would keep the water and fat in the fresh cream from separating.
We put magnets in the door too, so the energy would flow from all directions.
Owada started working on a prototype, testing a number of magnets at different places to create the most effective magnetic field.
We need between 2 and 5 magnets for each wall and the door.
After 2 years of development, Owada and his team had successfully built their first fresh cream freezer. This is it, Japan's first ever freezer equipped with permanent magnets. Here's how it works. The magnetic field running between the walls orients the electrons in the water molecules and those in the fat in the same direction. This raises the thermal conductivity of the fresh cream and greatly accelerates the freezing process. The cream freezes before the water and the fat can separate. The freezer units quickly became the talk of the town among confectioners in Japan, and the company sold more than 100 units per year domestically. One year after Owada had started his company, word about his fresh cream freezers had reached the shores of France. A legendary vocational school in France contacted him, inquiring about the freezers. The school's pastry program was run by a famous chef. Michel Pontillon is one of France's best-known pâtissiers. He got wind of Owada's freezers from a colleague who'd just returned from Japan. Owada's business was about to take on a whole new dimension.
The freezer the French pastry school purchased was the first unit Owada's company sold outside Japan. Owada was convinced he had reached the top, until one day he encountered the critical remarks of another renowned chef in France. The chef declared that Abi's freezers were good for nothing other than cakes, arguing they were useless for restaurant owners who needed to conserve fish, meat, and vegetables. The complaint spurred Owada's motivation to improve his product, and in 1992, he started developing a new type of freezer specifically designed for the restaurant industry.
Owada got straight to work on developing a better freezer. He first had to figure out why the fresh cream model didn't work for other kinds of food. He froze and thawed different types of fish in hopes of finding a clue, but he kept coming up empty-handed.
The chefs would tell me they would never serve frozen food. It would simply not be done. I thought I'd be a loser if I couldn't prove them wrong.
Fish in hand, Owada visited chefs of famous sushi and other high-end restaurants over and over again, until one of them gave him a precious piece of advice.
He took a bite and said to me, "I can't use this. Fish and fresh cream are two different things. What matters to us is for the cells to remain intact. If the cells break down, we can't use it. That's why we can't freeze food."
Owada had found the clue he was looking for. He now knew he had to find a way to freeze food without destroying its cellular integrity. Owada first pondered what he knew about fresh cream. The faster the freezing, the better the results. Then he got another hint from a friend.
The man was a pilot in the United States. When I told him about my project, he said, "Oh, that's just like freezing rain." I had no idea what he was talking about until I found out he was referring to supercooling.
Freezing rain is a meteorological phenomenon often observed in southeastern Canada and northeastern United States. It occurs when raindrops in the atmosphere are cooled to below zero without crystallizing and freeze instantly upon impact with colder objects on the ground. Owada tried to reproduce this flash freezing phenomenon inside a freezer.
The question was, what happens in the air before a raindrop hits a tree? It was just another shot in the dark, something I'm known for, but I thought it might have something to do with the Earth's magnetic field.
Owada carefully studied research papers on the Earth's magnetic field and found it isn't constant, but rather varies in strength. He tried replicating this characteristic inside the freezer. To this end, he entrusted the project to one of his most loyal employees, Yoshio Sakakibara, an engineer who had followed him from his father's company. Sakakibara suggested varying the electric current running through the magnet coils used in the fresh cream freezers. The coils produce a magnetic field when an electric current runs through them. They found they could alter the strength and direction of the magnetic field. Using an electron microscope, Owada and his trusted engineer began observing what was going on inside the food they froze. Owada and Sakakibara vowed to work every single day until a solution was found.
We ran test after test in an effort to determine the ideal ratio of magnetism to temperature. But I thought, there must be more to it than just the magnetic field. There's space inside that device. So we tried figuring out what else we could put in there. Mr. Sakakibara and I argued a lot, like family members do.
Owada thought about generating acoustic waves to excite the water molecules in frozen food specimens. Sakakibara's job was growing more difficult by the day. After more than 5 years of trial and error, they were finally able to create a phenomenon never yet achieved. They had reproduced the high-frequency vibrations that are characteristic of supercooled water molecules. Again, they froze and thawed a sample of raw tuna and checked it under the microscope. They found that most of the cells were intact. They had just invented the first gas freezer. They sold their first commercial unit to a fish processing company in Kyushu in 1998.
What's most important for a manufacturer is to never give up. My father taught me that once you understand your client's needs, it's only a matter of time before you find a way to answer those needs. I've always delivered on that promise.
And so, the first gas freezer was delivered to the happy client 24 years after the invention of the first fresh cream freezer. But there was still a lot of room for improvement. The effectiveness of the system varied depending on the type of food being frozen. The composition of food types varies greatly, as does their water content. So the system had to be made adjustable on several parameters, including freezing time and the strength of the energy fields inside the device. Still today, despite the latest improvements, CAS cannot guarantee 100% integrity of organic cells in the freezing process. ABBY continues its research towards achieving that goal. CAS freezers have been sold all across Japan. The first CAS freezer to be shipped overseas was in 1999. Since then, CAS freezers have been exported to 17 countries, including the United States and China. So far, more than 400 units have been manufactured and delivered. And as we'll see, this revolutionary technology has had a considerable impact on the local economies.
Amacho is a town in the Oki Islands in the Sea of Japan, some 60 kilometers off the coast of western Japan. The town's population of around 2,300 hopes Cass will help revitalize their economy. The period from late spring through summer is the season for rock oysters, a local delicacy. The oyster farms along the coast are bustling. This Cass freezing center sits next to the port. It was built in 2005 at a cost of around $5 million. The center is a joint public-private venture. It employs 17 people. 3 large Cass freezers are used to store local marine produce. It takes 2 hours to freeze between 1,500 and 2,000 oysters. Once frozen, they are packed and distributed across Japan and overseas. Here in Shanghai, they're being served up at a popular restaurant. In China, there is no tradition of eating raw seafood, but customers here can't seem to get enough of these oysters. Every year, more than 10,000 rock oysters from Amacho are exported to China. Only a decade ago, Amacho was on the verge of bankruptcy. The population had fallen continuously for more than 50 years, producing an elderly populace with few children. Then, in 2003, the government cut the town's subsidies. Finances deteriorated rapidly, and projections showed Amacho would be in the red by 2005. Urgent action was needed, and the local government decided to build a Cass center. The problem was how to raise the necessary $5 million.
We cut the wages of public employees, reducing them by half for 6 years.
The town cut wages to save around $2.5 million. The rest of the funds were secured through private donations from residents and government programs.
I was delighted. I knew we could increase production. More young people are moving into the town, and it's going really well.
The Cass Center started to turn a profit after 5 years, and revenue keeps increasing. Current annual production is 300,000 oysters, and the town wants to double that figure in 3 years' time.
10 years ago, we would never have thought the products from this small island would be known around Japan or even overseas. There was no hint of that possibility. We're very grateful to Cass Technology.
The people of Amacho have harnessed Abbey's technology to enhance the appeal of their local specialties. Cass has saved their town. Cass is also helping the recovery of areas affected by the earthquake and tsunami of March 2011. In the city of Ofunato, the tsunami destroyed more than 5,500 homes. Sanriku Toretate Ichiba is a local company. The firm processes fresh marine produce, which is frozen using Cass and placed in storage. It also sells its products online. Some company staff joined after losing their previous jobs in the disaster. They enjoy introducing local cuisine to customers around Japan. Kenichiro Yagi is the company's president. He's been working in the fisheries industry since he took a part-time job as a university student. Yagi first met Owada from Abe 5 months after the disaster, when he was considering buying a Cass freezer to keep his business alive. Yagi was worried about the cost of the equipment. He was surprised when Owada offered to loan him a Cass freezer for free.
He said to me, "I'll make the machines, you make us a future. Think about how you want to use them." I had to start thinking about how I could repay his confidence in me and how I could make a future for the business.
1 month later, Yagi received a Cass freezer and an accompanying frozen storage unit. The loaned equipment worth around $500,000 was installed in a partially destroyed building that didn't even have a roof. Yagi applied for some disaster reconstruction subsidies and decided to employ even more workers than before the disaster. The company's portfolio now includes not only processed marine products, but also ready-to-serve meals. This fried fish dish has been part of the local culture for generations. It's made with cod stomach and liver.
地元では内臓も食べるので、みんなが食べて美味しいって言ってもらえればそれでいいんだけど、ちょっと変わった商品なので。
The company has also developed 50 new products based on dishes created by its staff. They come up with new ideas every month. It's mid-April. Visitors from Alaska have arrived at Abe. They are considering installing cast freezers in 16 villages across the state. Owada himself explains how the cast system works. 3 months ago, the delegation visited Amacho and witnessed the town's revival.
I come from a small village, very small. Unfortunately, even we're at the heart of the fishing area, some of our children are moving, and those children we need to come back.
My hopes is that we would learn more and to use more of our resources that we have that we don't realize that's there.
The visitors are from communities along Bristol Bay in southwestern Alaska. The region is struggling to cope with depopulation and a loss of vitality. There is little employment as there are few industries to take advantage of the bay's rich resources, which include king salmon and horsehair crab.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Owada offers the Alaskan delegates to share a meal. The fish, meat, and vegetables are all cast frozen.
Tuna, preserved for 3 years.
Very good.
Really very good.
I couldn't tell the difference in the fish. I was sold the first time. I'm just only impressed at this time.
Even daikon.
Owada tells his guests he'll visit Alaska in 2 months from now. He'll make a presentation on using cast freezing technology to stimulate the local economy.
Thank you. また会いましょう。
Owada's company had begun producing cast freezers thanks to business from France. In Brittany, this food processing plant is one of his clients. It's a subsidiary of a Japanese trading company. The plant began using cast 10 years ago. It freezes marine products landed at local ports as well as local vegetables before exporting them mainly to luxury hotels and French restaurants in Japan. These fish are freshly caught sole, a key luxury ingredient in French cuisine. Until recently, the only way of exporting them to Japan was by air freight.
Now we can send this by boat, which is more cost-effective. When thawed, the fish still tastes very fresh. It's revolutionary.
The factory also supplies cast frozen ingredients to restaurants in France. 800 kilometers east of Brittany is the town of Lavensnow in the region of Alsace near the German border. The town has many wealthy residents, and this is one of its most popular upscale restaurants. The picky patrons here demand nothing but the best. The fresh sole from Brittany is transferred from frozen storage to the freezer the day before cooking and then thawed overnight.
When it's out of season, sole is rare and extremely expensive. With this company, we're guaranteed the same price year-round. If we buy from other suppliers, there is a difference because their fish retains too much water.
Sole Meunière is the restaurant's most popular dish. Every day, around 30 orders are received at lunchtime alone.
Cask freezing technology is being applied beyond the food industry. It's attracting attention in the medical field as well. Since the technology made its debut in 1998, several advanced medical research centers and universities have been conducting trials in collaboration with ABI. This experiment, carried out in 2007 at the National Institute of Biomedical Innovation, involved extracting ovaries from 5 primates. The ovaries were frozen, thawed, and then implanted back into the animals. In 4 of the 5 cases, the ovaries successfully regained their functions. The technology's ability to preserve the integrity of cells has given rise to strong expectations in the fields of organ transplantation and regenerative medicine. ABI is currently involved in joint research with 43 academic and research institutions.
Researchers at the University of Tokyo's Advanced Clinical Research Center are using cask technology to preserve human tissue cells.
Okay, Mark. This is one that we are using.
This is the cask.
Yes, this is a cask system for cells.
That is not at all what I imagined it to look like.
Oh yes, mostly intended to use for cells, and the smallest one like this size.
Associate Professor Hideaki Kagami is a tissue engineering specialist. He grows human tissue from live cells. His research focuses on preserving and cultivating stem cells, which can be used to grow body parts and organs. For the past 5 years, Kagami has been gathering and analyzing data on the cryopreservation of cells without protective agents using cask technology.
Why did you decide to use cask technology for your work?
Oh yes, you know, cask is a technology developed for food, and we really don't need any cryoprotectant for the food. So I'm very interested in that. So just I'd like to generate a tissue product without a cryoprotectant.
And so cask does that?
Yes. So usually we need a cryoprotectant, which is kind of a chemical to protect the cells or tissue from ice crystal formation.
One problem with the use of a protective agent is that it's best to wash it away before the cells are used for medical purposes. The procedure, though, requires a centrifuge, a very expensive piece of equipment small clinics cannot afford. It's also time-consuming, making it unfit for emergencies. So, doing away with a protective agent has its merits.
It sure looks cold in there.
Yes, it's actually minus 80.
Professor Kagami shows us a sample of cells he's frozen with cask.
Okay. Actually, this includes cells, and we freeze these cells without cryoprotectant using cask.
They are alive?
Yes. I don't say 100%. Well, I mean, most of the cells die without cryoprotectant. Only 5% or less than 5% can survive. But with cask technology, the technique, our protocol we have, we can increase it up to like 4 or 5 times.
Here's a microscopic view of cells after they've been frozen and thawed using conventional freezing methods. Here's a similar view of cells that were preserved using cask technology. The survival rate is considerably higher. They can successfully be cultivated after being frozen. Every improvement in the survival rate of cells opens the door to new applications in the field of regenerative medicine. In April 2014, ABI launched a new joint research project with Kyoto University's Center for Genomic Medicine. Fumihiko Matsuda is head of research. His specialty is analyzing biofluids, such as blood and cerebrospinal fluid, in relation to chronic and intractable diseases. Matsuda says he understood the potential of Owada's technology after eating a sample of cast-frozen food.
The human tongue can distinguish quite sharply between different qualities of food. It can tell whether the food has been damaged or gone bad. A freezing device that can deliver fresh-tasting food must be the result of great technological innovation.
Professor Matsuda's team is collaborating with Abi to develop a way of preserving blood and other biological samples. Matsuda is particularly eager to improve the freezer itself. He says he wants to be able to preserve large quantities of blood samples.
Right now, it would be extremely difficult for us to run experiments on, say, 100 tubes among our collection of 50,000 stored in 500 different boxes. That's why we need robots to handle these samples. But they can't work at minus 80 degrees Celsius.
The air inside this freezer can dip to as low as minus 150 degrees. The lower the temperature, the more insulating material is needed, and the larger the freezer needs to be. The liquid nitrogen used as a coolant is also very expensive. The professor lays out his expectations for a quick improvement to the current freezer.
Ideally, we'd like to be able to freeze and preserve everything we have using CAS technology. That would be the best solution for us.
I wonder if we really need temperatures of minus 60, 70, or 90 degrees. Why not work on developing a model that can store your blood specimens at minus 30 without damaging them at all?
A higher temperature of minus 30 degrees would also make it possible for a robot to operate inside the storage freezer.
My personal theory is that technology is intrinsically imperfect. Perfect technology is a concept only good for the wastebasket. That's the Owada theory. It's the imperfections of technology that lead us to making it better, or to developing new technologies.
Owada listens to his client and will try to satisfy his every need. This has always been his approach to customer service and product development. It's the spirit of monozukuri.
We still don't know if the Earth's magnetic field was responsible for preserving the mammoths in the permafrost of Siberia. But what is certain is that the inspiration it gave a young Owada led to an extraordinary story of innovation and evolution. I'm Marc Carpentier. Thanks for watching. See you again on the next edition of JTech.